interested in food and looking at food in different areas, and I mean, if you take it back to taking part in Cooking Raw, I took part in a few of them, and I suppose it was a nice group of people to be with, and we were traveling around looking at different areas, and I suppose from that point, but it was probably earlier as well, but particularly on an international level, I think from that point on, I began to wonder, like, well, why isn't Ireland being featured? Why isn't Ireland featuring these debates about food? I mean, what is our food? What are our key products? How do we bring people to Ireland to get them to start talking and thinking about Ireland? So I suppose it was an extension from working with the local farmers, and that's from when we began in 2008. And then it kind of mushroomed into trying to think about what is Ireland's place in global food.
And when it came to kind of, did you start with the produce? Did you start with dishes? What was it that you would say was really kind of what makes up Irish cuisine? Is it really dependent on the produce? Is it about classical recipes? Or because I noticed that you'd gone into kind of heritage and historic recipes, right? Like you've gone quite deep into
it's a bit of both, but I think that primarily it's of the product and for me, when I'm talking about Irish food, I'm always talking about the different produce that we have. And I think in terms of our primary products, whether it's cheese or lamb or seaweed or shellfish, I mean, we have amazing products, and we have a history of using these products in various different ways, some which lends itself towards like a kind of classical European heritage, as most of the European countries, and others in a kind of more regionalized way. But I think that from traveling and talking to people, that was one of my first realizations was really that we didn't appreciate the product that we had. And that was one of the things, particularly when I was in Mexico, I was in Canada, the States, in Poland, and I was thinking, God, like, we have really, really good products. And it wasn't that the product wasn't good there, it's that I just felt Irish products were better. And I was like, why aren't we singing about this? Why aren't we kind of like saying that we've got really, really great ducks in Ireland, and great venison, and just different stuff that I don't think a lot of people in Ireland even appreciated themselves.
Well, that's interesting, because as you're talking about that, it really does sound similar in a kind of journey, or what you hear people like Gastronomy maybe talking about when he talked about kind of Peruvian cuisine, and people not really having an appreciation for their own products or their own kind of gastronomic culture, and that's something that he really felt passionate about promoting, that was all being overlooked in some way. I'd say Alex Atala probably is someone
definitely, and I definitely empathize with Alex, and I've had a few chats with Alex, and that, and the kind of, when you think about Brazil and you're kind of going, what is Brazilian food, and what are its key products, and that it wouldn't they wouldn't roll off your tongue like the way if someone asked you about France or Italy or Spain or some of the other countries. So I think it's trying to position Ireland, and it's also trying to reclaim and create a bit of a story around what we've done. And that's why in writing the book, I wanted to go back all the way back to when the first people came to Ireland, because I think you can get caught up in different definitions of food and Irishness, and a lot of them are reductive, and they all go back to a bunch of classical recipes, or they go back to who was in power and where the influences came in that respect. So for me, I wanted to try and go all the way back and look at archaeological data and say, well, what were people eating, and could those products could they become kind of symbols of Irish food, as opposed to when we think about Irish food, we really think about that kind of peasant country cooking of the last 200 years or so. And I thought that way of thinking about food in Ireland was quite reductive, and it was almost like a pastiche of actually what we were doing.